Now that I'm really good and angry, I was gonna be excited. I wanted to be excited, but we got limited time here. We don't have time to sit around and talk about video games all day. Okay, we got real stuff to do. All right, but let's talk about video games for a little bit. Recently, as you know, the new Star Wars game has come out, Jedi Survivor, and we're here to talk about it and pick it apart. The sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, which was a good game. It was a pretty good game, I'd say. EA went back to their no one plays single player games roots and made a critically acclaimed and financially successful single player game, and then they go, maybe we'll do a sequel of the single player game. Maybe actually that's a good idea. So here we are. It got delayed. Now it's here. And how is it? Is it worth the whopping $70 price tag that I was treated to unaware of when I went to the Steam store page when it launched? I'm sure you've heard about it in the news so far for some of its shortcomings already, but let's get into it, I guess.
Jedi Survivor is here. It's amazing. You mentioned the $70 price tag. It is hefty. I can't really say I'm surprised by that, considering we've been paying $60 for new games for the last 15 years. The 16.5% price hike we've been seeing the last year or so is kind of like, really, I mean, I kind of just see it as an inflation adjustment, right? Nonetheless, Jedi Survivor nails it, bro. Like, it kicks ass. This game is fucking amazing. It's so good. And I can't wait to talk about everything that I love about it and why I think it's better than Fallen Order. What are your impressions? You've got to play it a little bit, haven't you?
I haven't played it as much as you because there's many reasons. I'm on a lower end PC, so this game does have some performance issues. It's a bit finicky in that department. So for me on my lower end specs, it was a little harder to get going, especially on stream, even more so. I know you were streaming it for many hours. I streamed it for about 4 hours. I think it's better than Jedi Fallen Order 1. I think this game does a lot of stuff that I wished the first game did. This game now delivers on. This game now brings it to the table finally, and all my complaints about the first game are rectified with this one, but now there's some new issues that this one introduces that I'm not too fond of. But overall, I think Jedi Survivor is really fun. I don't know if it's worth the $70. We'll talk about that more, but when the game is fun, when the game is working, I've had a lot of fun on it. There's a lot of moments of just as a childlike Star Wars fan, harkening back to that time. There's some really interesting stuff that this game does that I kind of always wished I could do in a Star Wars game or experience in this immersive setting. And this game really delivers on that too, as far as being a cool Star Wars game as well as just being a fun Souls-like action adventure game.
I haven't experienced it. There's no denying that there's been a ton of performance issues with this game. Respawn, as you pointed out to me, has even come out and addressed that. I'm sure we'll have that on screen. The public service announcement from Respawn in regards to performance of PC. Oddly enough, I've also seen dozens, hundreds of people complaining about the performance on consoles as well. Keep in mind that this game, console-wise, was only made for current gen, the Xbox Series X, S, and the PS5. There wasn't a PS4, there wasn't an Xbox One version. So you'd think it'd be pretty up to stuff since it's on the newest console available. But I've seen a lot of reports of poor performance issues over there as well as on PC, just a litany of issues, frame rates, textures, bugs, lag, game crashes, all kinds of stuff. I'm a little, I'm lucky to say I haven't had any major performance issues with the game. I've had the frame rate drop a little bit in areas where there's a ton of enemies, which could be the worst time to have frame drops because that's really when your ability to navigate a situation and control what's going on in play is most necessary, but few and far between instances. I've had a couple of times where certain textures weren't colored. There'd be like a black or vacant square on Cal's face or his forehead or something where there was just no texture or color of skin there, which was kind of weird. But I mean, the game has been pretty solid for me. I haven't really had any problems with it. Nothing's interrupted me. My game hasn't crashed during gameplay at all. I'm about 12 hours in right now to the game, and granted, I've been exploring a lot. I don't know what the actual runtime of the story is supposed to be, but I haven't had any issues that resulted in me crashing out, and that's with me also streaming. Keep in mind that I'm playing on Ultra. I have my graphics settings on Ultra, and I'm streaming, and I've really had no major performance issues with the game. But can we just talk about how amazing of a Star Wars experience it is? How much they've nailed the Star Wars aspect of this survival game, like this action adventure game. I just can't believe it, man. Like, we'll talk a little bit about new stuff they've added and innovated, but then I mean, even just the stuff that they brought back from the last game, right? I just wanna say I was very curious how they would tie in progression to your character and that feeling of getting stronger and more powerful with the Force, because you learned so much in Fallen Order. The double jump, the lightsaber throw. And I'm thinking to myself, how can they improve on this? What are they gonna do to make him feel even more powerful? And man, they've just continued to innovate with these lightsaber stances and additional movement mechanics and the grappling hook. And it's just like, I didn't see room for these existing mechanics to grow, and yet they did, on top of new mechanics being added. And it just feels so amazing. It's just perfect.
There's just these moments where I'm like, oh, that would be pretty cool if this could happen. And then they do it. It might not be right away, but they plant the seed and then they usually will deliver on it later. And I love that. It's so cool. As a Star Wars fan, some really great cross era stuff that goes on in this game. Somehow managing without feeling too shoehorned and forced, hearkening to the Clone Wars era, hearkening to even a little bit of maybe mild spoilers here, but it's kind of a newer era that Disney's introduced since they took over, that they're trying to build out. And this game is the first time that you're really seeing the High Republic era fleshed out at all, especially in a game, let alone in any piece of media so far. You know, the thing about the first game, that one of the things I didn't like was you're just fighting stormtroopers and stormtroopers and stormtroopers and stormtroopers, and it gets old. They rectify that very immediately. Like, the enemies you're fighting get way more diverse, way quicker, and they're spanning these different eras, and you get to finally slice through some normal battle droids from the Clone Wars era, and it just feels so good. And this game delivers on this immersive Star Wars Jedi combat experience. Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy did a really good job at lightsaber combat. The Force Unleashed had a different take on it that was more of a faster paced hack and slash. But this game, I think, is one of the, if not the best depiction. Jedi Academy is really close, but it might be the best depiction of Star Wars lightsaber combat we've ever gotten. And I don't know if that's going to be rivaled anytime soon. It's so good. It's so methodical. There are moments where I will come into a room and dispatch all my foes without taking a single hit by doing all these different moves and blocking at exactly the right time and parrying. And when you do that, when you have those moments, you feel like a Jedi. You feel like a badass. This game, more so than many others, really delivers on that experience.
Yes, dude. I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know, I'm fighting the Empire. I'm fighting Haxian Brood bounty hunters. I'm fighting Bedlam Raiders. I'm fighting Separatist battle droids. I'm fighting High Republic Jedi. Like, what is going on when I play this game? There's just so much to take in. They just managed to make everything feel so intuitive and rewarding. They have this perfect formula where your movement, your dodge, your block, your usage of the Force, your lightsaber stances, your combos, your available abilities with those lightsabers. It just feels, as long as you are in control of the situation and make the right decision, like you said, methodical, calculated, like an actual trained Jedi would be, you can navigate what should be an incredibly difficult fight without even getting hit. And it's completely up to you to master those mechanics and to take advantage of them and use your environment and your movement and your combat to do so. And can we just talk about the enemies? Every boss that I've encountered in this game so far is just freaking amazing. Like every time a new enemy comes on screen, I'm just like out loud, like, bro, that's cool. Like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Every single
Yeah.
time, man. They manage to take stuff you're familiar with and make it feel like you're encountering it for the first time. You
Right.
know, I don't want to say anything too crazy because I don't know how far you've progressed in the game. I don't want to spoil
Yeah.
things for you. But yeah, there are enemies where it's like, yeah, I've seen that before. Yeah, okay, it's in the movie, TV show, other game, whatever. When it jumps down from the rafters or breaks
Mhm.
through a door and tackles you, you're just like, holy
Mhm.
shit, dude.
Mhm.
What just happened? It's they just I can't explain it, man. And
Yeah.
they have this kind of teamwork mechanics
Mhm.
where you can use your allies to take out enemies, to subdue enemies for you. You have cooperative finishing moves, and it actually feels like your squad mate, your ally, the person that you're traveling with is involved in the combat.
Yeah.
They're actually effective. Sometimes Bode was killing people before I could get to them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
your allies are actually useful
Yeah.
and they feel badass. It's the gameplay loop on top of the just, you know, masterclass execution of depicting the Star Wars universe and
Mhm.
capturing that magic and that imagination and that feel. I mean, this is probably the greatest feeling I've had in a Star Wars experience since season 1 of The Mandalorian. And prior to that, we're talking all the way back to 2005
Mhm.
when Revenge of the Sith came out.
Yeah.
Was the last time I had a feeling like this. It's just incredible.
There's a lot of wonderment that it packs in, will spark everyone's curiosity who's playing. And regardless of what eras of Star Wars you're the most interested in, there's stuff in there that you're going to find really cool. They really pulled out all the stops to come up with new ideas that they're not new because they're from things that are already established. They're just pulling it in and making it work within the game. It feels like, the combat almost changes completely depending on the stance you're using, which is so interesting and dynamic. Parkour has gotten more advanced. The force abilities have gotten more advanced. There is other ways for you to traverse the terrain now, which was not present in the first game. It introduces new ways to move around the maps. It just dials it all up to 11. Everything that Fallen Order did well, it just dials it up right to 11. And, in terms of the world, like, there is some stuff, just a little nitpick. It's interesting that for some reason in this game, there's no characters that don't speak English. Basic in Star Wars, it's called. Every alien that looks like they shouldn't speak English does for some reason. That actually does pull me out of it a little bit. There's like one character, for instance, that I don't know if he was cast very well, which is a Jedi bounty hunter. It was cool to see because the Jedi was a character from the Clone Wars. He was a Jedi bounty hunter named Dirge from the old animated Clone Wars series, the hand drawn one. Those characters can live for hundreds and hundreds of years. Like, very cool to see one finally in a piece of, playable media. But then his voice actor just doesn't fit with how he looks, in my opinion. And there's a few moments like that where I am not sure if the casting was right. But, short of things like that, the immersion factor for this game, like, I'm playing it, I feel like I'm a Jedi on an adventure the entire time. That especially comes through with the added customization that this game has brought to the table, which was a big, big gripe I had in the first game. Because in the first game, you go around exploring and all you unlock is fucking ponchos, which no one cares about. Now, finally, I'm rewarded heavily for my exploration because I get cool looking armors and stuff for the BD droid that makes him actually look different, and new colors for all my clothes. And Cal is still a character that is his own and he has his own look. There's some things you can't change about him. That retains his character as a person within the universe. As far as how some of his aesthetics are, what his style is and stuff like that, you have a lot more control over, and it makes you feel way more attached to the experience and the character and your journey, because you have this sense of agency for how you look, and you get to think about, like, and this is what I'm doing in an RPG sense, like, how would he look right now? Like, what would
Yep,
he look like in this situation? What if I were a Jedi in this situation, what would I wear? Stuff like that. And just, it's
exactly.
so cool. It's so cool.
You still have that framework, that, shell, that skeleton that is Cal Kestis. You're still Cal Kestis. But there's a lot of, I think, interpretation by the player of, given the events of Fallen Order and the progression on that of several years, what would Cal look like? How would he have grown into what he is now? And that's your decision to make. You can choose, and that's so good for player expression. And any time you give the player the means to make an artistic interpretation of your storytelling, it just helps glue things together, because now you're not restricted, you're not limited in what you think and what you see. It's up to you, and you really feel like you have at least a sliver of control over the story and what happens. I've enjoyed the hell out of it, man. The first thing I did was give Cal a mustache. I was just like, yeah, I'm projecting. I'm just immediately projecting. God, what a game.
Where the game really shines is this amazing combat, this amazing gameplay loop that it has, but there's not enough of it. I feel you have some control over, hey, I'm going to choose to do exploring in this area because I know there's some stones left unturned before I move on. And I tend to play a lot more like that. Like, I have a hard time moving on before I'm like, I fully explored the area and unlocked everything. Even I think if you would optionally avoid doing a ton of the extracurricular exploration, there's still so much downtime in this game, especially in the first several hours. There's certain areas, and I think there's certain times where the best parts of the game aren't shining as much. And even some of the enemies that you fight that are really cool, like the battle droids and stuff, you're only fighting for, at least in this one area, a fraction of the time, and then it's back to stormtroopers again. It's back to fighting little bugs on the ground. It's like, okay, I don't understand why they spend all this time making all this cool stuff and then you're not doing as much of it. And there's back-to-back floor is lava puzzles. For some reason, the whole point of the area is that you can't touch the ground. And that happens, depending on how fast you get through it, like an hour of the game is that, because there's one area that's like that. And then the very next area you'll go to is also like that for some reason. And they're on two completely different planets. But the whole premise of both areas is don't touch the ground, which is so annoying to do back to back. And it was really boring the shit out of me. Also, by the way, there's a particular desert planet that you'll go to and you can't touch the ground, and there's a monster in the sand, and if you touch the sand, he'll get you. And that's literally an exact copy of a level from Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. There's a desert planet that you go to with a thing in the sand, and if you touch the sand, it will insta-kill you. That is literally a level already in a Star Wars game. Why did they do it again? I am so confused. Those are nitpicks, but the thing is, for people who are more into the combat, I actually am not sure if this game is going to fully hold their attention enough. Like, if you're there mostly for the combat, like the first several hours of this game, it's a bit slow.
I don't agree, man. I actually found myself in the opposite situation a lot, where I would be actively circumventing patrols and groups of enemies because I had already been in a fight so many times just from leaving the last meditation point that I didn't have any stim canisters left.
Mhm.
And the enemies just keep popping out from here and there, and this super battle droid wakes up. And I'm like, oh my god, dude, like, please. I had the opposite problem where it's like, I couldn't get out of combat. I don't know. I definitely felt some downtime during the puzzle segments. There's a lot of puzzles in this game. A lot of puzzles.
Yeah.
And some of them are
optional.
long. Yeah, there was a pretty long puzzle that I had to work through last night, and I'm not the greatest puzzle solver. I'm no cryptologist, so I'm getting like Black Ops Zombies Easter egg solving levels of like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Yeah, to me, there's a really good balance between the downtime and the uptime and the combat. And I haven't explored maybe some of the same areas you explored on Kobo, which is why I probably don't have the same sentiment about the scarcity of enemies. And a lot of times when I was exploring, I ended up happening upon optional fauna bosses and stuff like that, which the fauna in this game, by the way, kicks ass also. I don't know if you've noticed, but with the accessibility features, because thank God they brought dismemberment back to a lightsaber combat game.
Yes.
They have dismemberment in the game. Thank you. But in the accessibility features, you can turn that off.
Yeah.
You know what else you can turn off? You know what else you can turn off? Spiders, guys. You can turn spiders off in the game. They have an arachnophobia safe mode, which, thank God, I wouldn't self-diagnose with arachnophobia, but I don't like spiders. I definitely get a little tingly sensation on my back when I was fighting them in Fallen Order. You can just turn them off. So, I may or may not have taken advantage of that feature a little bit.
There's a lot of cool stuff that they bring into this game that we haven't really seen before in a Star Wars game like this, especially not one of this high quality. Performance issues abound for PC users and even console users. Like one of our friends, Ethan, said that even on PS5, he's dropping frames in certain regions, which is just really unacceptable, honestly, for console.
Right.
Maybe hold off on buying this new hardware because that's where most of the problems are. It's on those newer processors and graphics cards. So it's with a grain of salt. It's, I think, a little bit of column A, column B here. I'm sure EA gave Respawn a fraction of the amount of time for development that they gave them for Jedi Fallen Order because they wanted a sequel out quick. I'm sure that's the case. And so I'm sure some corners had to get cut there. But I'm also sure that making games for PC is getting harder and harder with each passing year because the amount of potential variables and combinations of hardware specs and everything like that is so almost impossible to account for at this point. And on top of that, some of the hardware is coming out poorly made with corners cut on their own. Like it's just becoming it's becoming a bit of a crapshoot. The console stuff is where I can't give a pass. The console stuff, bro, those are the same drivers. It's the same hardware. It's the same everything in every machine.
Right.
You should know exactly how that's going to run. It should be tested to infinity on those things and make sure it's consistent. If you can't do that, then you have a problem as a developer.
Yep. Overall, Jedi Survivor is just an amazing game. I have had so much fun playing it. Barring that, you don't have major performance issues with it, it is absolutely worth the $70. Man, I hope that this is the new standard for Star Wars games because I could get used to this.
Yeah, this game does have me pretty excited for some of the new Star Wars games coming out. This game has a high level of polish in terms of gameplay and world building and features and even graphical fidelity. There's some beautiful stuff. Even on low settings, there's some pretty stuff that makes me go, wow, that's crazy. It's an impressive game. It's fun when it's really fun, and it can, like I said, there might be some slower times, but there's so much to do that I have no idea when I'm going to feel anywhere close to complete for this game because I spent hours and hours and hours fixating on going down every possible path on one of the first planets just to find out I was only 29% complete when I finally left the planet. There's a lot of content. It's an amazing, hyper-immersive Star Wars experience. I think it makes you truly feel like a Jedi for potentially one of the first times ever. It's just really great, man. It is a really great game. If you're not confident in your computer specs, if you think you might need to do an upgrade, maybe do that first before jumping into this game and dropping another $70 on a game you're not going to be able to run well. Like I said, it's $70. It's a lot of money to spend on one game, but I think you'll get if you're a Star Wars fan in any way, shape, or form, I think you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, and just an idea here, not shilling for mega video game publisher or anything, but in the coming months, if you're someone that's willing to hold out for a better opportunity, you're not in a rush, you don't care about spoilers, you're someone that doesn't tend to grind and really stay and revisit the same game over and over again, you like to move from game to game, I'm sure that eventually, probably in the not too distant future, this game is going to end up on the EA Play program, which I think is like 10 or 15 bucks a month. It's basically EA's equivalent of Game Pass. So that's an option to you too. I mean, if you have it already or would be willing to buy it, I mean, I'm thinking about it now. It's like, yeah, I could pay 70 bucks for this game, or I could pay 15 bucks, have a month to play it.
Yeah.
And then if there's other stuff on there that I like, I'll renew, or I can just cancel. And then I paid 15 bucks, or I paid 15 bucks to play through the whole game. Probably more than once if you have a whole month on your hands. Yeah. So that's just an option, I'm somebody that pays for Game Pass because there's just a ton of games on there that, one, I want to play in the future or that I plan to revisit at some point. So
yeah. I know Fallen Order was on it at one point as well, so I'm sure this will be at some point.
Just go play Jedi Survivor, guys. Just because that's what I'm gonna go do right now.
It's not a bad idea.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Check out all of our socials, to join the Game Gains Discord for updates, events, community nights, and to interact with us. And for the full discussion, check out the Game Gains podcast, link in the description.